You're listening to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Gillis, copywriter, word magic maker, and owner of What Sarah Said. On this podcast, you'll feel empowered to show up online in a way that has you saying, "That's so me." Let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Copywriter On Call podcast. I am your host, Sarah Gillis, and I am logging some on-call hours today with Erin, who's an accessibility educator and the founder of Mabely Q. Erin, I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. You're probably like the 100th Sarah I've ever met.
Oh, well, I'm one of the coolest.
Yeah. You don't have an H on your your name, right?
That is true. I don't have an H, so I'm unique in that way.
Yeah, exactly. The Sarahs without the H tend to be like, we're special, but the Sarahs with an H are like, that's not spelled right.
I know it. I had a lot of Sarahs in my high school graduating class, and most of them didn't have the H like me. So I thought that was so funny. I thought I was really unique until high school.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah, well, anyways, it's wonderful to have you here. Thanks so much for joining me. I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do and why accessibility is a passion of yours.
All right, so where do I start? So I am Erin Perkins, and I am deafblind. However, if you look at this video or if you're here listening to me, you're like, all right, she's deaf, she's blind, none of this makes sense. So I was born with both conditions, but I didn't find out about my vision until I was 21 years old. So I wore hearing aids my whole life. My parents made sure that both me and my sister knew sign language, so we know American Sign Language, and we both took speech therapy. I had speech therapy all the way through 7th grade. Hated it, but it's worth it now because I can speak, so it's great. But auto caption doesn't always capture me properly because I can't say certain sounds, like the S's just doesn't come through because I can't hear them. So that's how it works. My vision, I found out when I was 21 getting ready to have laser surgery. And the doctor was like, something's wrong. Like, what could be wrong besides I need laser surgery? And they found out at that point that I have a loss of peripheral vision.
Oh.
So that means it's tunnel vision. So that means my vision's going to get smaller and smaller as I get older. That doctor specifically told me I would lose my vision in 10 years. Happily, it's been 23 years. It has gotten a little smaller, but it's about 40 to 50 degrees circular vision. So my best example is if someone is sitting next to me, I do not see you. So this poses a dilemma. People think I'm mean or a snob because I don't answer people when they say hi to me. I'm like, it's either I didn't hear you or see you. I am so sorry. I didn't mean that. But no, like seriously, if you tap me on the shoulder, you want to introduce yourself, by all means, please do that. Because like really, I don't see everything that goes around me. So that leads into my passion for accessibility is like, I want access. I want the same thing that every other small business owner does. I want to learn from other small business owners and realizing that a lot of them didn't know about disabilities or accessibility because usually I'm one of the first people they met or they've had experiences with somebody when they were younger, but it just doesn't occur to them because it's not part of their everyday life. So I just got on this mission to be like, you know what, let's make accessibility easy because it does feel scary. And I want to make it easy for them so that we all have similar experiences rather than one group struggling over the other. Plus, we will all end up with a disability one day. as you get older, you will have some sort of disability, whether temporary or permanent. So that's why I try to like show people that there are little things that you can do to make everyone's life better.
I love
So
that
that's my
so
long
much.
spiel.
No, I love that so much. I think that you're so right when it comes to accessibility is important for everyone today or tomorrow and
Mhm.
both. And so I think it's important that we talk about what practical steps we as business owners can take. And
Yeah.
to me, it just makes good business sense to
Yeah.
make sure that our businesses are accessible, because we want to be able to serve people who want to work with us. And how do you know if you want to work with someone if you can't enjoy their content, if you can't approach their website and understand pieces and parts of that? And so it just makes good business sense to do what's necessary to make sure everyone can enjoy your content, read your website, watch your videos, etc. And so I
Yeah,
would love, go ahead.
it's interesting because yesterday I saw a video from another deaf person, and they said when they see somebody on social media post caption video, to them, to me as well, it shows me that they've literally taken the time to think about, hey, I'm going to add caption so I feel included. It literally is something that I'm just like, oh, they thought about needing to provide access. So I'm going to keep them on my list of
Yeah.
like people I want to like stay in touch with, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. I find that that's really important, even as a person who doesn't have difficulty seeing or hearing. I want the captions too. I want to make sure that I understand everything that they're saying. And
Yeah.
so I think it, again, just makes good business sense to take that extra step and to make it accessible for everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of ability.
Yeah.
So I would love to know what you think is one step that every business owner can take today to make their business more inclusive. Because I think there's so many options out there. There's so many opportunities. What is one step that we can take today to make our businesses more accessible?
One thing I've noticed right now that it's interesting, especially as a lot of startups keep coming out and coming out. Whenever I go on the website, I don't see an accessibility statement. The
Mm.
and I think that is one of those things that if you include that statement, only include it if you're actually gonna do something about it. I mean, if you are a company that sells physical product good, you are going to want to have some sort of statement that says, like we created this product with that you want as many people to use as possible. So you need to make sure you have an accessibility statement that kind of like falls in line with that.
Mm.
And even if you're a digital company, you want that statement to be there because it shows people, oh, you've really thought about this. This is something that you want to work toward. Maybe you're not going to get everything right at first, but if you just have that statement and you actually do something about it, then I think that's like a huge step that you're showing. Because like I was on a few websites earlier this week and I was like looking for the accessibility statement. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And it's tough
Mm-hmm.
because like I was like, oh, this is actually really good. But if you don't have an accessibility statement, you're not keeping me in mind. So I'm gonna have to like move on to the next person. You're literally gonna lose customers that way.
Yeah. This is so eye-opening for me. I don't have an accessibility statement on my website, and I never understood the importance of it until just listening to you. And it makes sense to make
Because
that commitment.
the importance of the statement is really so that if someone has a problem when they come to your website and you have that statement there, and you're telling them, hey, reach out to me if you have any issue with this website or anything. And if they reach out to you, it gives you the opportunity to fix something that you might otherwise never knew was the problem. And then you can fix it, and then you can create that relationship with that person and be like, you know what, I actually care about you. If you can't access my website, how many other people am I missing out
Right.
on because they can't access it either? It's literally just a way to show that statement to people that if I have a challenge, I admit I'm not 100% perfect, but if there's a problem, let me know so I can fix it. We all want that, don't we?
Absolutely. Just makes good business sense, like I said. But from a human perspective, that's really what matters here is I want to be able to connect with other humans on a human level. And so adding that statement to my website, I'm going to make that a priority. Thank you.
Yeah. You can go look at my website if you want some ideas.
I will, and I'll link it for our people in the show notes as well.
Okay.
So if they want to have an example of what to say, they can follow that as well.
Yeah.
So now I'm a website copywriter, and so I spend a lot of time thinking about websites and particularly words on websites. But I want to touch on design first, on website design.
Okay.
So how can we be more inclusive and accessible when it comes to the way that our website is designed, whether it's colors or layout?
So the first thing first, I'm going to say majority of the websites fail the accessibility test, mostly based on color.
Okay.
Like the color contrast usually is the one thing that fails. And it is very common is because the person who had created the brand, like, all right, I'm going to take my brand here, for example. My original brand was basically that navy blue on the wall and that orange blanket. And what was the other color? I had like 2 shades of orange, so it's also the lighter shade of orange. So I could only use the darker orange with the navy blue and that sort of work. It passed the color contrast, but it wasn't great. But if I wanted to use the 2 oranges together, it failed. Even though I'm a designer, I love the tone-on-tone look, but it doesn't meet the color contrast. So my first website definitely failed all of that, but I wasn't in the accessibility realm at that point. It wasn't something I was thinking about. I was thinking design because that was my background. That's where I've done graphic design since like high school. So that was not something I was really taught. And so when somebody creates the brand design, a lot of brand designers don't know or realize that you need to make sure the color contrast works. So a lot of times they'll create a palette that kind of has the colors that go with each other, but there's no standout. So if you fix that color contrast, you want to fix at least 30% of the errors on your website.
Interesting. Okay. That's good to know. So tell us about what your website is now. And obviously I'll link it in the show notes, but tell us how you changed your colors now.
So I actually, because we all know we can't do our own work, our own design work. I mean, Sarah, I'm sure you're like, I can't write my own website copy.
It's really hard.
Like, it's just like so hard. So I hired someone. I was like, I need you to create a new brand for me. I still want to keep the navy blue. I sort of want the orange, but I'm open to it. And so she created a whole new brand for me. The font was not script. It's much more readable. The colors have more diversity in them. So I have like a navy blue, 2 shades of orange, cream, and a light pink. So it works really well together. And then later I decided to add a couple of purple because I wanted something that was more poppy.
Yeah.
And so that once I changed that, it worked big time. It made a huge difference. Like the colors flowed better, and it actually passed the color contrast standard. So yeah, so
That's
that was
awesome.
like the main thing that I did with my brand.
Awesome. Any other layout tips? Any other design tips that you have for
The
accessibility?
second one is when you create, like I'm guilty of this, when you create, because I'm a graphic designer, so I like to create things in Illustrator and design because that's like my forte.
Mhm.
So I would create it and then paste it in the website as the background with the text because I wanted to keep my exact font. And you know how sometimes when you look at it somewhere else, like that's not my font. It's not
Mhm.
like conveying. That actually created a problem because if the image loaded, but if you are visually impaired, you cannot read that font, that text, because it is the screen reader does not tell you what it is unless you put in alternative text.
Alt text,
So
yes.
yeah, so it was like totally guilty of that. Now I don't do graphics like that. I just like build off on header 1, header 2, because that is like much easier for screen reader to read. So
Mhm.
that's like a big thing. Like don't create graphics with text in it unless you're gonna put it in alt text, and don't use those graphics as headers.
Yeah. So use just the font, the normal text font,
Mhm.
the headings for your text, or make sure that you have alternate text placed for that image.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Those are really helpful things. Is there an online check that we can do to test the color contrast? Is
Yeah,
there is there somewhere we can go?
I have a couple of favorites. I
Mm-hmm.
have the let me look at my link. Yeah. Uh, it's called Are My Colors Accessible?
Are my colors
And
accessible?
that
Okay.
will tell you. And I also like the Google Chrome extension Color Buddy.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah,
Like
it's
I
awesome.
connected with the owner of it. I was like, this is a great tool. Like, where have you been all my life?
Yes, I have it too. I have it because I have it for both of my brands, both my copywriting brand and my book business. And
Mhm.
it's wonderful. It's
Yeah, because I
wonderful.
would always have to go into Canva, find my color hash code. So
Yes.
annoying. This now
Yes.
I can just go to my little copy and paste it. But yeah, if you buy into the Color Buddy like app, you can add in your favorite color pairing, which will show you these are the color contrasts that you can do
Mm,
together. So if you like need a refresher on what colors you can go to use together, it's great because it's there. Like I can just like look,
yes.
oh okay, I can use those colors. So it's by the Color Palette Studio.
I love that. Color Buddy. I only use the capability to copy and paste the hex codes right now. I didn't know that there was an accessibility component to it. And so
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
But you have to like pay for it, but I think it's a
Yeah.
one-time fee, but like I love it because it allows me to have everything in one thing. But if you don't want to pay for it, you can use the other website that I told you,
Hmm.
paste your hex code in there, and it'll create like a little chart for you so that you can see, like, it'll tell you, like, if you have the navy and the orange, and it'll like create a square with like the blue square with the orange text and say, yes, you can, or no, you can't, or
Got it.
kinda.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
love
it's
that. It
great.
kind of gives you a scorecard of all of the different
Yeah.
color combinations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, obviously, we're going to get to the copy part, right? So, website copy. How can we make the words on our website more accessible?
Clear, clear and simple language. Don't use, I hate fluff. Don't be like all the like AI, when we're using AI, they like to do like these fancy words. I'm like, what is this word? Delve. No, we're gonna dive into the work. Simple language. Because majority of the American population can only read at an 8th grade level, which is like shocking, but at the same time not. So it's like if
That's
majority of
important.
the audience can only read at an 8th grade level, use clear and simple language. Like don't like go on a run-on sentence. Like I know we all like to talk, so don't write like you talk. I'm guilty of that, but it's like write what you need to say, and then break it down. Like do like a couple sentences, bullet point, break it down so it's visually easy to read.
I used to tell my students to write down or to take a sentence that they wrote in maybe a research paper, and then on a piece of notebook paper, write what I really mean to say is. And then they would write something really simple. And I would say, why didn't you say that instead of this long sentence that's so confusing? Right. And it was a really great exercise. And I think you can use it in business too.
100%, because like there are times where I will be talking with other people and they would just be like talking on, and I would be like, can you just like explain it to me like I'm 5? Because I don't fully understand it. And that's the problem with accessibility. Accessibility is hard. Me, like, I'm like, this made me feel stupid. I was like, I'm not understanding this. I had to like really kind of break it down, figure it out. And I was like, I need to make this easier for other business owners, because if I'm having a hard time, I can only imagine what everybody else is thinking. So that's like what I'm trying to teach people, is like simplify as much as you can so that it's actually doable. Because it doesn't need to be hard.
Yeah. What about font size when we're thinking about the size of the font on our websites?
So we all know font sizes tend to vary. Like 16 point doesn't mean every 16 point font looks exactly the same. There's some that are like smaller, some bigger. So like as a general rule, we usually go with 16 point on your website.
Okay.
For like your body.
Okay.
And then
16.
like go up from there for your header font, and just keep going from there.
Yeah.
The 16 point should be like the smallest, but if it's like a big chunky font, then maybe go 14.
Okay. And tell me about the script font, because I'm guilty of this. I use a script font as an accent, but
That's
okay.
totally
So
okay.
tell me about the script font, because I feel hesitant to even use one anymore, even as an accent.
Yeah,
I'm entertaining the idea of not using it.
It's funny because when I first got started 6 years ago in my business, like I love my script font. Like I'm like, this is my favorite thing.
They're so pretty.
It's pretty. I use it. I know anybody in the wedding industry, if you want like to attract the right people, you're gonna use the script font. Like great, use it as an accent font. But be aware that it might be hard to read. And also the younger generation, they're not being taught cursive.
Right.
So it's like, you kind of want to think about that. If you're going to be teaching, if your target audience is going to be like the Gen D or the Alpha generation, you're going to have to think about whether or not they can actually read script font.
Yeah. I have a soon to be 7th grader and a soon to be 4th grader. And my 7th grader learned cursive only to write his name. And that's it. Okay. Just so he didn't print his name. Like he can sign an autograph or sign, eventually when he's older, he can sign his credit card receipt or whatever. But my youngest hasn't learned it at all yet. And so I think you're right. A lot of these kids aren't learning cursive anymore And so it's going to be hard for them to read it, even if it is an accent.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to use it as an accent, use it very sparingly. Use it like in places where it makes sense and it's not going to. If you were to take that word, that line out, but you have like a script, say it's used as a header to accent, and then you have a paragraph underneath. If you were to take that header to away, you couldn't understand it. But the content underneath still explain what that header is saying, then I think you're okay. But if you were to take that context away, would they be able to understand it? That's where I would go with that.
If what's being shared in this episode is inspiring you to bring more of your personality into how you show up online, I've got a quiz for you. Head over to whatsarasaid.com/quiz and discover your brand voice type so that you can feel confident in standing out through your words. This quiz will help you uncover the brand voice that's already within you, so your words can finally have you and your dream clients saying, "That's so me." Knowing your brand voice type means you'll have full permission to ditch the proper and polite copy if your authentic voice is actually quirky and fun. Your brand voice is what I call word magic, because honing it creates literal magic for you and your dream clients. Plus, after your brand voice type is revealed, you'll get access to 5 free social media prompts to help you share your voice right away. So what are you waiting for? Take this fun quiz now at whatsarasaid.com/quiz.
Erin, are there any special things we need to think about when we write and publish blog posts?
I mean, I'm biased. I love blog posts because like I can actually read them. Video, I feel like is a gamble if they've captioned it or not. So it's that. Blog post, I mean, you're writing stuff. I would say if you are linking to something, always make sure you have 2 distinguishing characters from the body text. So always make sure you at least underline it. I know people hate underline because they think it looks ugly, but that is my indicator that that is a link. Because I've noticed some blogs out there, like I contributed to one and they posted it and I'm like, I couldn't tell that there were links on there unless you hovered over it. So you need to make it visually obvious that that is a link and not to make the link too long, but or say click here. So say you are doing a blog and you are referencing a book. You want to like put the title in so that people know, oh, you're linking to the book so that you can buy it, that kind of thing.
Right. I didn't even think about that. And I think that's the moral of the story here. I think that's the important thing that I want to emphasize is that there are so many things that we don't necessarily think about that we can and that can promote that accessibility and be more inclusive just by taking simple steps and hitting that underline button.
Yeah, for sure.
I think too, with blog posts, I always try really hard to use headings and subheadings.
Yes,
and to
perfect.
break up the text with bullet points or numbers or something like that.
I mean, we're going back to the old school ways of like outlining. I love the old school way of outlining, you know, Roman numeral 1, 2, ABC, all of that. I love it.
Yes.
My favorite.
Yes. I think that helps everybody read. And so I think it's more important to think about the way that everyone reads, and that can apply here when it comes to accessibility.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me a little bit about social media content. And I want you to mention video here. We've already talked about the importance of caption, but what's important for us to consider when it comes to social media and making it accessible?
So the biggest thing is that, you know, when we talk about, like when I talk about me being deafblind, it confuses people because they're like, but you can still hear, you can still see. That was the biggest thing when it came to my identity was realizing that every disability is on a spectrum. That wasn't necessarily taught to me growing up, is that you don't have to be fully deaf. You don't have to be fully blind. What your disability is your disability, wherever you are on that spectrum. So that has been like a huge reminder to me to be like, not most people who are identified as legally blind still have some vision. It's not a lot, but they have some vision. Like, I mean, most people have 180 degrees of vision. I have 40 to 50 degrees. So you start to realize that I definitely have a lot of something. Like, I don't see things. Like, I trip over things. I run into people. I run into, like, those pay meters. They hurt. So when it comes to, like, social media, we still use social media. Like, don't exclude us from that. Being online is sometimes an easier way for people with disabilities to connect to other people, because it's just a little easier. So one of the good things that you can do is making sure you capture your video. When you do story, don't rely on auto caption. I actually have that turned off, because I have found time and time again the auto caption does not work for me. And if it does work, where it falls in the video tend to be overlaid by the social media caption, which makes me insane. It's like, I can't now. I'm done. Not reading it. Sorry, bye, skip. So that's number one. The other thing is, when you have a graphic that has text in it, it's so tiny, who can read that? Make sure you put that text in your actual caption. Because if you are a screen reader user, you're not going to be able to read that. There was, some major news shared through Vice President Kamala, and she had that image with text in it. I was like, what is that thing? I cannot read it. They didn't even put it in the caption. They should have done that.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody that big can mess up, it's okay if we messed up, but remedy that.
Yeah.
Always, if you have text in the graphic, put that exact same text in the caption. It's not that hard.
Oh, I love that tip. That's something everybody can do. I love that tip. And I think that there are so much of what you've shared, Erin, is so simple. It's so straightforward. It's something that takes just another minute or just another few seconds, and it makes such a difference. I appreciate that. Tell us about your social media accessibility scorecard. I want to know more about how we can use that to kind of gauge where we're at on social media with accessibility.
Basically, I think I created, like, I can't remember which one. I think it's this different one, so that it's super easy for you to evaluate. And I basically tell you what you need to check. You can check always, sometime, rarely. And then at that point, at the end, you'll have, like, you'll add up your score and you'll decide, oh, if you get always, you get a high score. That means you are an social media accessibility maven. If you are mid-ground, here's some tips that can help you. If you have failed, I tell you, like, start with one thing. Start with this thing. Make sure you do it well, and then we move on to the next thing.
I love that. I love that. We'll have the link for that scorecard in the show notes.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent. I want to know other ways that business owners can work with you to be more inclusive and accessible in your business. So what other services or programs do you offer for businesses?
So I have a couple different ways. If you are somebody that might be just starting in business and you want to make sure you're building accessibility into your business from day one, I have a platform called Successful. So that's Success and Accessible combined to make one pretty fancy word.
I love that word, successible.
and it's trademarked.
Oh, good. Love that for you.
So that is basically do it yourself. You can learn from different areas of your business. Like I have like a focus on just social media. So you can learn from that, apply it to your business, do it well, and then you're like, all right, I've got social media. Move on to email marketing. Do that well. So I've like broken it down into that. So that's like great for do it yourselfers. If you're just one person, you just want to make sure you're incorporating things. But if you're a 6-7 figure business owner, you maybe have a VA, you might want to bring me on to do like kind of an accessibility audit done for you or with me. Like we can work together and we can do it over the course of a week, and we can really focus on one aspect of your business. Say if you are an email marketer and that's like your bread and butter, you want to make sure you do it well. I can come in, we can evaluate everything, and then over the course of the week, we will adjust and revise things in your standard operating procedure to make sure that we built in accessibility in every piece of that process, so that it's like simple and you can like feel like you've done everything you can to ensure that everyone can read your email. So I can do that for email, social media. I have somebody for a website because I'm not an expert in website. Brand design, but you need to have a brand started. And events. Online, in person, like bring me in.
Yeah, I love that.
And
podcasts. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so the last question is kind of a fun one. I want to know where the name of your business came from.
Well, I love sharing that. So Mabely Q. So it pulled together from 3 names that are passed down in my family. So Mabely is from Marie. So that's the M-A. B-E is Elizabeth. That's my middle name. So, and then L-Y is Emily. So L-Y. So Mabely makes that. So it's like honoring the women in my family.
I love that.
And both of my sisters have those names. And my mom has Emily. And then Q is actually cipher for the number 17. So 17 is my favorite number.
Oh, I love that.
Q. Yeah.
Mabely Q. I love that. Thanks for sharing that story, Erin. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of these insights that you've shared with us. I will have all of the links that Erin mentioned in the show notes for us. Thank you so much for being here, Erin, and thank you for doing what you do. I really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for having me. I really enjoy talking with you and teaching your audience all the good stuff.
I appreciate it. As always, thanks for listening, everyone. And this is your Copywriter on Call, signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Copywriter on Call podcast. If this episode has you feeling all sorts of inspired to show up as yourself online, click that subscribe button so you don't miss my stories or practical advice to help you express your quirky, vulnerable, and authentic self online. Chat soon.